And just like that, it's Hump Day. Engelbert Hump Day. I've never understood what Hump Day means. I never why it's such a big deal. Like I think it's a mental mindset. You know, if you set the week as a, I gotta get through the week. That's how it's going to. If you're going to go like, boom, bring it on. I think that's where we're at. You know him, ladies and gentlemen. You love him, and he's got something to say. He's been trying to share this for about 3 days, and we haven't had time. And we've got a jam-packed show today, including someone live from Portugal. Ladies and gentlemen, the king of New Malden, only Neil Long.
Thank you very much indeed. What an intro. Thank you so much.
And I like the mystery person just walking out of shot. That's
you know, well, I'm an international man of mystery.
You are. So you're like just to, you know, the mystery machine.
Keep up that high level of mystique.
Yeah, the mystery machine is parked outside your front door. And you'd have got away with it if it wasn't for those darn meddling kids. Mr. No, was it? They always go. They go. Caretaker Jones.
Yeah,
that's it. Right, let's dash across the northeastern United States. Asa, hello. Asa Don Brown. Hi there.
Asa Don Brown.
Right, you kick off because you've been dying to say something for ages. Go on.
An insight that came to me the other day, just based on my own experience and things I've observed, and I really wanted to share this. It's all about mental health. Okay. This particular story does concern a lady, but 50% of our audience are women, and we certainly don't discriminate. It's all about mental health in men and women.
And 50% of our audience are women. Remember that.
Exactly.
It's just the name of the station. It doesn't mean that's all we do.
No, absolutely. As I say, so the story doesn't start particularly pleasantly, but it has a wonderful happy ending. And I will also say, hello, Julie, by the way. Really enjoyed talking with you on Facebook, sending lots of love. I know you get up especially early to listen to this show. It's around 5 a.m, so she's up about 4:30.
Well, she's got to load all the guns. That's what
getting ready to listen.
She's got to load the
really inappropriate thing to say, Russ. It's really inappropriate. Anyway,
completely appropriate. If I was in Texas, I'd be armed to the teeth. Right.
Fair enough.
Let's hear your story.
Okay. So here's how it begins. There was a lady, obviously I won't name her, but she's a friend of a friend, and she tragically lost her son. He was only in his 20s. Terrible, tragic, random, unexpected accident. I don't mean a vehicular accident, just a totally random accident. And tragically, he passed away. We've talked about grief. We've talked about putting on the mask, and she did that really well at first. And we also know through talking on the show that sometimes when the dust settles, it catches up with you. Bam, and it did. Yes. And she ended up in intensive care because she tried to take her own life.
Oh my God! Could this get any worse?
No. Now we're at the bottom of the curve and it starts getting
better.
The
nadir of your story.
Okay, the nadir of the story. Now, I'm not saying this to big myself up. There's a greater lesson here and a greater point.
Okay.
Excuse me. But Liz, who you know from the show, sent her a copy of all things of my stand-up. And this is a really lovely thing. But it was the first thing as she was coming out of intensive care, just coming back into consciousness a bit more every day, that actually made her laugh again for the first time. That's not to say, oh, I'm so funny, even though I am, but that's not the greater point.
I've seen the
point. The point is, point number one, if you do have some work that you want to put out there, even if you don't think it's going to directly help people, it's worth putting it out there because you never know
100%,
how it could get
100%.
used, who could see it, who could find it at what is to them, may not be a big deal to you, but to them it could be a really key time in your life. And for this girl, it was. And also, this is the more important point, she's now much better. Her old self is coming back. The light is back in her eyes. And I just wanted to say, we talk a lot about mental health, but when you see it play out in front of you, and I saw her the other day, and honestly, she is like a new person. She's like a new person.
Well, you've got your daughter in Canada. I got my 4 kids, one of them living in Texas. Anything happened to them, I would never bounce back. I've bounced back from enough. I would not bounce back from that, and it's a miracle. So well done, you.
The point is, mental health is attainable no matter what. I know we think we wouldn't bounce back, but some people do. Some people can.
I wouldn't.
That's very fair to say. All I'm saying is she has. So no matter what happens, no matter what's happened to you, it is possible to bounce back. It is possible to feel good again. Mental health is innate. It's got really, I know it's a big bitter pill to swallow and a difficult one, but I really don't think it's got anything to do with things outside of us. Yes, they influence it, but ultimately it comes from us. And she doesn't have any access to any particular new wonderful form of psychology or any particular skills that we don't have. It's something that is available to all of us. And that was actually...
We will come back to this story.
And I needed to share that.
It's big and it's powerful and it's good stuff. Ian Foreman, it says, what a lovely story, Neil.
Thank you, Ian.
Good morning, chaps. Good morning to you, Ian. It was lovely to see you on my... Yes, I went to Comedy Unleashed on the phone, and it was absolutely brilliant. I won't talk about it now because we've got somebody chomping on the bit in the wings. But the first person I walk into, and the guy gets up from the table, "Hello, it's Ian." I'm like, I didn't expect to see anybody that I knew apart from Fred. I didn't say hello to them because, frankly, Neil, I'm too sexy for my shirt. Right.
You're deeply dippy, mate. That's what you are.
That's my problem. Neil, do you fancy a little Mateus Rosé?
Oh, yeah. Go on then.
Would you like some fresh sardines?
No.
Followed by lovely grilled chicken under a blue sunshine. Let's go to Portugal, everybody.
Oh, my God.
Alvaro. I think, to be honest, Alvaro, if you can't do stereotypical stuff, what's the point of life? That's what I say.
Exactly.
Portugal's fabulous, by the way. Thank you so much for joining us. When we were chatting beforehand, I said as a joke, what beautiful ceramic tiles behind you in the shot. I'm sure everyone's going to pile in now and go, those are fantastic. And they're gorgeous. He said they're Portuguese. I said, oh, did you bring them in? He says, no, I'm living in Portugal. So, because there you go. There we are. Right, Alvaro, we're all fascinated because we've read your CV. Tell us everything that's going on because it's all...
Yes, I've been doing a bit of research on you. I'm absolutely intrigued, but I'll let you go first. Please share.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on the show first of all.
Pleasure.
And I was actually planning to not listen to anything about your show until I had done the chat with you guys. But I was listening to a lovely lady called Claire earlier, and I thought, wow, this is really, really interesting about addiction, alcoholism, and so on. Yes, so where do you want to start, Russ? I mean, it could go back to...
Well, in the immortal words of The Sound of Music, let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start.
Okay, so I would say I had a relatively privileged upbringing. We moved to Portugal in 1973, just before the revolution of the 25th of April. And there wasn't much TV and radio at the time, so my parents produced 7 sprogs. And they were quite busy bees. And I pretty much my trajectory, or the pain trajectory really started when I was shipped off to boarding school. And I realized recently that...
You're preaching to the converted here, Alvaro. I was 9.
I was
came
10.
out at 18. Jesus.
Yes. It's really where all the problems started. And I actually had some revelations recently. We can go into that a little bit later. But I actually stopped breathing properly when I was given the news that I was going to go to school in England. It was quite a shock for me. And it all sort of went relatively downhill from staying down, failing years, having difficulty dealing with kids younger than me because I stayed down a year. Very strange teachers and headmasters and housemasters. I all just felt very, very odd, insidious, and I just never ever felt very comfortable with it. And
can I jump in?
It really led...
Alvaro, can I jump in for 1 second? Knowing what you know now, and then please continue. Do you think half of these people would have been in jail?
Well, I wasn't molested per se, but probably
no, I'm not saying molested, but I can tell you now, I went to boarding school a long, long time ago. And I went off for 9 years, and it might have well been the 1930s or indeed the 1800s. And I think a lot of those teachers should have been imprisoned. One of them was.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm delighted. He was an absolute bastard, complete shit. But the others, some of them definitely should have been banged up for a long time.
I had a few canes broken on my backside, put it that way.
Nice.
I was quite truant, and I used to come home and show my mother my war wounds, and she would just cry. So it kind of all just started going downhill. Then I started becoming truant, and the story is quite interesting because where I grew up in Portugal, we were surrounded by a ghetto, and the ghetto in the early years was very colourful, very musical. We had people from Cape Verde, Mozambique, Angola, and my childhood, if you looked at it from an outsider, looked wonderful. And but when I got shipped off to school, all of a sudden I was no longer with my best friend, who was my brother. Friends around me as well. And I was kind of just shipped off, and I wasn't given much notice. And it pretty much led me to feel feelings of abandonment. And what happened when I came back from boarding school back to Portugal, the landscape had changed, and I was finding it very difficult to reintegrate. And by this stage, the ghetto was more dangerous. There was gun crime, knives, drugs, and that was when I tried crack cocaine. And then everything started.
Oh my God.
And I was 14, 13, 14.
Jesus.
Wow. And then?
So then basically lots of abuse, not with crack, funny enough.
When you, because a lot of people be asking, so we sort of act as everyman, me and Neil, and try and ask the questions we preempt.
Sure.
When you're 14 years old, is it because you felt peer pressure to do it, or you just fancied doing it, or your mates were doing it?
Because you found it so hard to reintegrate, and it was a way to numb this cognitive dissonance, I suppose.
No, absolutely. That would have been one of the big reasons. But also, I was hanging around with my friends, and we were playing reggae music. They were smoking heroin, and they introduced me to crack. It was a one-time event, but it's a very significant event. So between that age of 13, 14 and the age of 30, I was kind of trying to be a rock star. I was drinking a lot, smoking a lot of weed, was dabbling with heroin and so on. But it wasn't until I was 30 on a bender with a business partner to be at the time that I discovered crack again. And it was like, where have you been all my life? I mean, I'd forgotten about it. And it led to a good solid 12 years of sitting in a shed in my garden with the rain coming in diagonally through the door. And I was just getting obliterated whilst raising children. I was married at the time as well, and still am, thankfully. And it was a pretty devastating thing. And what was driving me, see, addiction isn't just to substances. I was building a business. I had a successful business on the King's Road in the tile business, funnily enough, and that still carries on today. But it was a real shambles of a life. I mean, it was a disaster. And that's kind of how I started looking at ways to try to heal myself.
Can we dig down? Can we just press pause for a sec, because there's so much to unpack. Number one, I don't do drugs because I'm a control freak, so I like to be in control, and drugs wouldn't let me do that. It's as simple as that. And they've had no attraction to me, and that's not a moral thing. It's like I don't like beetroot. It's not a moral thing. I just don't want to do it. Okay, I'm not standing on any moral high ground at all, ever. But these drugs are very, very expensive. A very dear friend of mine, who I will not name, became addicted to crack cocaine and blew through 100 grand in no time. In no time.
Easy.
Destroyed their business, which was very successful, nearly destroyed their lives. And I said to this person, who will remain completely nameless, why couldn't you say no? And the person said, well, I had my dealers on speed dial, and they phone you up touting for business, and it's so hard to say no. How were you able to bring up your kids, and how was your wife so understanding when you were basically kind of absent, sitting in your shed?
Whew, actually, it just sent shivers through my spine, actually, just trying to sort of recall.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife and I, we both have a history of substance misuse. Now, it was quite complicated bringing the children up, of course, and running a business and dealing with the children. But we had a lot of support. Sadly, my wife's mother is no longer with us, but the grandparents were absolutely instrumental in helping us. And we had ups and downs. I was doing well, she was not so well, and we were yin-yanging through it. And see, recovery is a job that you can't do alone. And, we were helping each other. You could say there's a degree of codependency there. And But somehow we muddled through it. It's really because of the support that we had, because we are
and the
people.
kids, did the kids know? And by the way, I've got a rule on this station. You know, if you don't want to answer the question, it's not the BBC, it's not an interrogation, it's a conversation. We're all trying to learn. So if you don't want to answer, just say sod off. And I'll answer it.
I'll gladly answer that, because it's actually pretty bad, really. I mean, I would hurry the kids to bed so I could go and use. And my wife would actually make sure I ate my greens and my veggies and my meat, so that I was actually so that I was remaining relatively healthy. The kids did not know, but kids, they know, but they didn't.
Yeah, they're not stupid. Kids are not stupid, are they?
No.
Is crack cocaine one of those drugs that, and again, like Russ, I don't stand on any moral ground here, but I personally haven't tried crack cocaine. Is it one of those drugs where you can get addicted on the first hit?
They say so. It took me 17 years or so to revisit it, but it's very, very difficult. The pull on it is something I've never experienced. The pull of a drug like crack. I mean, you will plow through your money. And one of the motivating reasons why my businesses were quite successful is that I really needed to ensure that I had enough cash to feed my habit.
Right.
There's nothing like
for
it.
those
And I
of
had
us
speed dials.
The usual accoutrement.
I've seen people addicted to various things, not crack, but I've seen people addicted to alcohol, which can be pretty awful. And literally their whole life is built around getting the next drink, and nothing else seemed to matter. Their job, their kids, their friend, nothing. It was alcohol.
My business, Neil, I couldn't agree with you more. I had a business partner. He drank himself to death. I thought he was 20 years older than me. I really did. He was 5 years older than me. He drank himself to death.
It's absolutely tragic.
And I had a wonderful accountant who was so good, and he drank himself to death. And I watched both these people destroy themselves. It was revolting. So let's not underestimate what booze can do. Can I ask you a difficult question, Alvaro? But because I don't do drugs, what do you feel when you're taking the crack cocaine? What is it that's pulling you in that you want to experience?
Silence from the incessant thoughts of negativity, the feelings of emotional pain. It really is silence. But it's a bit like a beep, a long beep that doesn't get out of your head. And you have this urge just to keep going. So the first hit's great, and then it's just terrible. You're just chasing. Do you have to
double up? This is coming in from America, by the way. Here's a question from Azadon Brown. Alvaro, how have you managed your triggers? How have you managed your mental wellness? Excellent question.
It's a super good question. Now, I've been in recovery since 2015. Actually, 14 was when my journey started, 2014. And I went to traditional rehab. I did a Narcotics Anonymous. I also did hypnosis. And what was great about all these three things is that they kept me well for 6 months. My sort of benchmark was 6 months. So I was on a mission to find something that actually could potentially help me. And by being relatively selfish, sorry, carry on.
No, it's just a perfect time to say, because we're going to ask you all about what you do, because as I said, I've done a bit of research and it's fascinating. But what I just wanted to say was, and you really touched on something there, that the reason why people do these things, get addicted to these things, a lot of times it is innocent. I call it a good intention, but a poor strategy. It was like my friend with alcohol. He was in terrible emotional pain. His life was spiraling. And of course, it made it worse. They use the word comorbid in the medical circles, which is a horrible word. But the reason why he did it was just to feel better. So the fact that you've got ways of feeling better in a healthy way, and I think if anyone is struggling with an addiction, it's important to see your innocence in it. But it's just people are doing the best with what they know, and it's good intention, poor strategy.
I didn't want to sweep past this because it's a really major thing. So this is one of our listener viewers, Dave Dano. Good afternoon, Dave. I was addicted to alcohol, but I haven't drunk for 20 years. You know, that's one little sentence that comes up. Think about the strength that takes. Well done to you. Well done to you. Now, there's another big question coming up. This is coming in from New York, Manhattan. Anything I did to myself because I hated myself. Oh, Elizabeth, for goodness sake, come on. You're a perfectly nice person. How did you feel about yourself, Alvaro? Asked Elizabeth Green in Manhattan.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth, for putting me on the spot there. I felt absolutely lousy, shameful, full of guilt, full of justification, full of remorse. It's very difficult to describe because feelings are ambulant. But the main feeling that I was actually trying to resolve by using was really feeling less than, and that's a common theme.
I'm so sorry. Say that again. Feeling
less than.
Could you expand on that?
So basically, I just didn't feel good enough. It's as simple as that.
Which is a really common.
But you know what? But you know what, guys? I'm sure all the audience would agree, well, listeners and viewers, that we all feel like that. I think if you think I'm great, I think you're a freaking narcissist. Quite frankly, not good enough is. I do. I think
one of the great realizations that people can come to. There's a hypnotist, maybe you've heard of her, called Marissa Peer. She's done TED Talks, and you can find her on YouTube. The thrust of her main teaching is I am enough, those three simple words. And when people have that realization that actually they do have these resources inside, no matter what the outer world or the past has taught them, they are enough, they always were, and they always will be. That is a major shift that people have. And that is a major step towards back to mental health, because we already are enough. We already are what we seek. But what is fascinating me with you, Alvaro, is that you've got these protocols that you do, with a good intention and a good strategy. And I really want to hear about that, including the name of if I've got this right, a drug of sorts used in a good way that I've not heard of before. So I'd like
Can
to
I just say one thing that always fascinates me about these conversations? I've never met you before until, 5 to 12 this morning, UK time. And I look at you, you look like a freaking film star. You look like a film star. And now I'm hearing that you were like out of control drug addict, and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, this guy looks great. This is the problem. I'm not making light of this. This is what goes through my head. If you were all ravaged like that, I'd get it. You look so ludicrously handsome and coiffed, and I'm thinking, well, maybe it's not so bad.
Or a living testament to what's possible, which is what I was talking about before we brought Alvaro on.
Okay. That's what I'm saying. I wasn't being facetious. I'm serious. I'm being
sure. Well, I often say we are the lucky ones because we have had an opportunity to really work at a very deep level on ourselves. And I don't think I would have been able to do that. I would have been just part of a big group of people that my ex-business partner used to refer to as the smiling bland. Not to say that anyone that hasn't been through addiction isn't working on themselves and they're not having a beautiful, fulfilling life. But for me, it was necessary to go into a dark place to actually let the light come through the cracks. And it's as simple as that. I needed.
So tell us about said light that came through the cracks and what you're bringing to the world now.
Right. Okay. So basically, we work with a alkaloid called ibogaine, which is extracted from a shrub, from the Tabernantha iboga shrub from West Central Africa. It's endemic to Gabon, Cameroon, and the Congo Basin. And this product, would you like me to carry on?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this alkaloid, or the root bark, is used for rites of passage by the Bwiti tribes in Gabon and other parts of West Central Africa. And it's like a rite of passage. So young kids, male and female, go through this journey with this alkaloid, and it helps them draw a line in the sand. So imagine you're a kid, you're going into adulthood. It helps you deal with your past so that you can go into your adulthood without having the baggage of the past dragging you down. And it's a big event, and the whole village gets together. And it wasn't after having failed at rehab and at hypnosis and white knuckling and NA and so on. I was actually in a hotel room in India getting blasted, and my wife phoned me up and she said, I've heard a TED talk. It's about something called ibogaine. I thought, what's that? So I started researching, and within a week, I was in Amsterdam doing ibogaine. And ibogaine, basically, it puts you in an awakened, dream-like state. And when you're under the influence of the alkaloid, I like to call it a medicine rather than a drug. And incidentally, a lot of people don't understand the terminology of what this product really should be named as. My NA sponsor fired me for doing a drug to get off drugs. But actually, I was in much better health than he was, actually, by the end of it. But so you basically go into the past. It's a bit like a past serum. So you're going deep, deep into your childhood traumas, life events that have led to you acting out in a particular way. So, you know, when we talk about addiction, I don't think it's fair to just talk about substance misuse. It can be codependency. People can start gambling or excessive shopping or isolating, workaholism. I mean, I certainly had that in my life.
And gluttony as well. So
gluttony.
Addiction is a huge umbrella. Huge.
Is it anything like ayahuasca?
Okay, so it's an interesting topic. So ayahuasca's mechanism of action is quite different, and often people refer to ayahuasca more as a female entity or female spirit. It certainly allows for deep work, deep emotional work, but ibogaine also has the ability, and this is the remarkable thing about ibogaine, is that it can actually ameliorate, meaning reduce withdrawal symptoms to opiates, namely heroin and morphine. There is nothing in the world that can take someone off an opiate addiction like ibogaine. I mean, sometimes
because I did a bit of research before you came on. I'm going to read this verbatim. Ibogaine may work, obviously does, in reversing the effects of opiates on gene expression with resulting impacts on neuroreceptors. And this is the bit that jumped out for me. And I can see why it would clear your past as well, returning them to a pre-addiction condition. So you're basically saying that not only it can heal you from your past emotionally, but it can also have a physical effect in the brain and change those receptors to pre-addiction conditions.
So
that's miraculous.
Alvaro, let me see. I want to break it down in more simplistic terms.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying it's like doing a reboot on your laptop? Is that what it's like? Going back, or when you can set your laptop to when it screws up, you can set it back to an earlier date.
Yeah, it's a defrag, back to factory settings. I mean, you know, there are some claims that, people talk about ibogaine being akin to doing 10 years of psychotherapy in one night. Now, I think those claims are a little bit exaggerated, but I'm seeing it every single day. People's lives are improving as a result of ibogaine. And we don't just work. Pardon, is it safe? It is in the right setting. It can be incredibly dangerous. People need to be vetted. People have to do EKGs and full blood tests. And anybody with any heart problems, such as potential arrhythmias or any cardiac history, they are likely to be turned down because people can go into cardiac arrest because it actually affects.
That's me out then.
It affects what we call the QT.
Alvaro, if it works, it's wonderful. I'm just gonna put my shop front out. It would be my idea of hell. It seriously would be my personal. I don't want to go backwards. I'm someone who looks forward.
I've heard of the ayahuasca.
You want to go back?
I've heard of it. I kind of half do, if only just to let it go. I've heard of the ayahuasca ceremonies, and I'm not comparing the two, but I did want to ask the question. And I know the person that taught me NLP did an ayahuasca ceremony, and he got swallowed by a giant snake, apparently.
That's why I went.
Common theme.
A pretty intense metaphor. I don't know if it was female. But maybe
calling Dr. Freud to reception.
What I learned about ayahuasca is it forces your hand. Once you've taken it, you're going to go through the process whether you bloody well like it or not. Is ibogaine the same, or can you kind of think, I don't like this, I want to stop?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, once you've ingested the molecule, you are going to take a big, big deep dive into your psyche and
How long does
subconscious.
it
And
last?
you are not going to like what you see often, but
Yeah.
we need to go through it, through
You're
the
not
pain.
selling it to me, I got to tell
And
you.
no, I would rather not sell it to anyone, because if you're
So
called
you
to
take
it,
this.
you
You
need
see,
it.
I'm a meat and potatoes guy, Alvaro, and Neil's fascinated with the theory, but I like to dice and slice it. All right, So you're in a clinic. I'm assuming you're not going to be sitting in your car doing this. You're under a controlled,
You're in a controlled
controlled environment.
environment.
You
Yes.
take this stuff. I don't understand. Explain to me. You take a deep. What happens? Are you tripping? Are you dreaming? Are you hallucinating? What are you doing?
Okay, so I mean, the terminology is quite difficult to pin down, because typically the layman would understand the term psychedelics, and you're tripping your balls off and what have you. But ibogaine a little bit different. You effectively go into a awakened dream-like state. So when you're actually dreaming with your eyes closed, I can see you guys in my dreams exactly as I can see you now. The imagery is incredibly vivid. It's like watching a high definition television. I saw my premature birth. I saw the nurses putting me in the incubator. I saw that first time that teacher was watching me in the shower. I saw that first caning that I got, where they broke the cane on my backside. I saw the moment I stopped breathing when my parents told me I was being shipped off to school. I went through all the various little traumas that took place in my life that molded me as a grown man today. It's incredible. You cannot do that
But once
talking
you've
to a
been through them,
psychotherapist.
painful that it might be at the time, I guess it's a relatively quick process. And I take it it's the last time you have to do it. Once you've done it, that's it, and you won't need to revisit it. Yeah.
Well, in my case, I have done it a few times. I often have to test product. It sounds a bit funny to say that, but we actually have to make sure the clients are getting quality product. But I originally did it in 7 years ago, and I revisited it about 5 weeks ago, and it was the most horrifying and the worst experience I have ever had in my life, and I have never felt so well since that moment. So I clearly had some more debris to clean up. And it's incredible. This is ongoing work. And since then, I've also been running retreats with other ancestral plant medicines to support the process with our clients. And we're getting incredible results.
Do you
Incredible.
think
I
if
mean, I
we had
salute you for
more?
that. Hang on, Neil, one sec. So
Sorry.
this is from Leslie Ian Jones, whose brother presumably took his own life through his own demons. And Leslie Ian Jones says this, and I'm with you 100%, because I got to be honest, Alvaro, I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. That's me. Wouldn't go near it.
I
It
would.
sounds horrible. I would never take this drug. So many paths inside your brain, and I would worry the drug would take me down the wrong one. This is it. Are you freaking around and remapping your brain? Because I would worry that something that I quite liked about me, there's not a lot, but there's things that I do like. I don't want it remapped.
Yes, and
I,
actually, as a corollary to that, to keep the computer analogy, if we're setting it back to factory resettings, what if there was some data you wanted to keep on it?
Oh, well, you're not resetting in that particular ways, but you are resetting your neural pathways. You do not change. You can't change your past. You can't really, but you can make peace with your past. And this is what's happening. From a substance misuse or behavioral addiction angle, we do say that people go into their novice state. So you are resetting. However, it takes a lot of work afterwards to keep that reset. And actually, the reset will morph into other areas. I mean, if you focus on your recovery and you do lots of recovery related activities and actions, you are likely to stay on a pretty good wellness path.
Yeah, I mean, I did hear a lady on a podcast once, and she does things that are not dissimilar to you. I don't think it's the same medicine.
Sure.
But she said it's not one hit. It's not the. I think it was a study into whether psychedelics can cure depression, and the answer came out yes, with ongoing work.
Possibly.
It wasn't just a one.
Absolutely.
It wasn't just a one,
Possibly.
like a magic bullet.
Alvaro, let me ask you this. and if it's had great results for you, that is terrific. You know, I would never ever decry that.
And for our clients, of course.
Of course.
Yes.
All of your clients or some of your clients?
The majority of them.
What, 80%, 70%? What would you say?
Probably about the 70% mark, which compared to traditional rehab is what, 3%?
Okay.
I think we're doing pretty well.
So
is that what traditional rehab is? 3%?
Yeah.
Good God.
What, you're saying that if you go into traditional rehab, only 3% won't?
That's what they told us when we went to rehab.
Do you think if we had...
Neil, I want to just, while I've got it in my head, I want to ask this.
Sorry.
Let's just take the example of boarding school, just for a second, because that's the one thing you and I have in common, apart from the fact I like Portugal, but that's neither here nor there. So,
me too.
We both went to boarding school. It both affected us. Some ways excellent, some ways terrible. Now, I've never taken these drugs, but I've come to terms with it. I've looked at it as an adult, looked at those things, and I have rationalized it, and I've parked it, and I've dealt with it, and I've moved on. Why is it not able? Just taking that as an example. I'm not talking about drug addiction. I'm talking about that. You know, I would never take a drug like that to deal with my issues, let's say, at boarding school, because I've dealt with it as a grown-up. I've dealt with it.
That's a great question.
Yeah, can we do this process without drugs, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we mustn't forget that, you know, that I didn't just discover crack and think, oh, I'm going to use this to deal with my childhood trauma. I was still a child. I was 13 years old.
No, I get that. You were 14.
And
horrible.
I was just sort of navigating back after being away. But you know, some people are not able to cope as well as others. And clearly I was quite underdeveloped emotionally and was just not able to deal with my hand, which is quite a good hand in the grand scheme of things. But I just felt emotionally unable to really deal with what I was feeling. And it's very common.
Only you went to boarding school? You've got 6 other siblings. What happened to them?
Well, some of them did, but they didn't end up in the same predicament as I. Funny enough, one of my brothers says, you know, I was depressed because I didn't go to boarding school.
So there you go. You felt left out, you know? You felt left out,
exactly.
I guess.
Exactly.
What about this? Now, Azadon Brown is coming in, and I'm not being contentious. I'm just trying to understand that, right? So Azadon Brown, who's a top, he's very senior in the psychotherapeutic community in America. He says this. I read them out, by the way, Alvaro, so that people on other radio stations, they're hearing us, they're not seeing us. As a clinical psychologist, I'd be concerned about the psychological triggers and false memories being brought forward. What do you think? What do you think about that?
Well, I think a lot about it, actually. Like I said, Ibogaine it's a bit like a truth serum, actually. From what I understand and from the feedback I get, people are actually getting authentic memories. And sometimes when the memories are planted or distorted, they are actually there to give us a message. Now, we've seen about 230 clients, and not one of them has regretted going into an Ibogaine journey, even those that ended up in emergency units in hospitals, which can happen. The problem with the established medical protocols is, you know, people are being loaded from the front end by doctors and psychologists with psychiatric medication. And people are becoming anhedonic. They're not able to feel. Their life is a complete disaster, a mess, because of the traditional way of dealing with mental health and problems and so on.
So why are they ending up in hospital then? Why are they being rushed?
Because of people can go into cardiac arrest. So it can happen, and this is why we work in a safe way.
But you said about 10 minutes ago that everyone coming in to your clinic, retreat, whatever, is checked. So how they slip through the net?
It can happen. It can happen. Often it just happens. We don't really know why, but what we do know is how to deal with the problem when it happens.
Call an ambulance.
We can't call it.
Do you think? Because I mean, in indigenous societies, they have a lot more of these rites of passage. It's really, really important. You know, possibly every few years. We don't really have that unless you count birthdays, or getting married. But we certainly have very little of it in the Western world. Do you think if we had more of that, then problems like this wouldn't be as extreme? And if people did take these journeys, they would be less extreme if we kind of done our work as we went along?
Yes, I think so, very much so. I mean, when you're out in Gabon, and I haven't had the pleasure of actually going there to be initiated, but it takes a village. It takes a village to heal. It takes a village for wellness. We are
Absolutely.
so disconnected. We are
That's
so
why
disconnected
London
these
and
days.
the UK and America is such a shagging mess.
That's why I moved to
Loads of
Portugal.
fatherless kids. They just bugger off. Mother's doing 27 jobs to keep food on the table. Kid doesn't have a father figure. Hooray! There's the benefit.
It's
system.
community.
I mean,
It's
just
community
one
and
bloody
connection.
after another.
It's
You
community
are
and
so
connection
right.
that we seek, and the
Yeah.
science bears that out. Recent study, even over health and wealth, it's connection and community people want the most.
So in the Gabon, so
absolutely.
when you're out in the middle of Africa, let's say, you literally got a village. You got family units. Everybody kind of knows everybody else. I get that. To put it into modern urban society, how the hell are you going to do that?
Well, I mean, what we do is people pretty much start entering our community, which is quite expansive, before they even enter our center. And while people are with us as a big focus, we actually call it community, where people are sharing about their feelings. It's not an NA meeting. It's tailored to what the work that we do. And we have created something called the Ibogaine Recovery Movement, which basically are online meetings, and people join us from all over the globe to carry on this communitas. It's absolutely essential. You cannot do this work alone. And people are signing up for other plant medicine retreats because they know that the work that we are doing is improving their lives and the lives of their families. It works. It really works.
I believe you. In Portugal, they've got a different attitude towards drugs as well, haven't they? Does this help your cause at all? That if people, unlike in the UK, if you take drugs, you could be criminalised. Portugal, in quite an enlightened move, in my opinion, have made it a health issue rather than a criminal issue if you're a user of drugs.
Sure. Well, one of the reasons why we moved to Portugal in 2016 was because of Psychoactive Substances Act, where Ibogaine became illegal. Now, in Portugal, Ibogaine is in a non-regulated space, and it is true, drugs are decriminalized in Portugal. In fact, I presented Ibogaine to João Goulão, who's at the top of the Drugs Advisory Board, who actually decriminalized drugs in Portugal. And he's a big supporter of the work that I do, but the establishment would like me or someone who has a deep pocket to actually undertake clinical trials to show the safety and efficacy of Ibogaine. Ibogaine's a little bit like persona non grata because it does have health risks, cardiac risks in particular. And it's got a long road ahead. It's been battling in the space since the 1960s.
Alvaro,
it's a long road ahead.
What are you, apart from obviously your own personal, I'm not going to say journey because it sounds like Simon Cowell and makes me want to vomit, your own personal life, what are your qualifications to be doing this?
I have got the T-shirt. That's as qualified as I can get.
But you have no medical qualifications?
I have no medical qualifications. I run a very tight ship. I run a business in Portugal. I have an expert team of consulting medics, nurses, psychiatrists, therapists, counselors. I'm the guy basically putting everybody together to make this happen and to create a safe container for people to do their healing work in. So
what was the name of your
T-shirt?
I get that, but I wanted to double down and make sure what I thought was correct is correct. What was the name of your shop on the King's Road?
It was called Differenti Limited, and there were a few other brands as well, and they're still going. No longer on the King's Road; it's moved elsewhere. Still going.
But nothing's any longer in London. It's all it's all completely.
It's moved to Portugal, actually.
Well, you know, I'm very restless at the moment. I'm thinking about all sorts of things, and having some sunshine would be delightful. Alvaro, will you come back and see us next year?
I would love to. Yes, I would love to.
Because I think there's a lot more to discuss, but time.
And good luck with everything. I mean, it's an intriguing field. I have had a little look at the field of psychedelics and the possibilities and all that sort of thing. And if it can help people heal and it can be done safely, I say why not? As long as it's safe.
And Alvaro, can I tell you one thing? I'll guarantee, and I'm going to end on this, that my cousin Francine is watching at the moment in North London. I will get a phone call this afternoon, and I know it'll go like this. That guy, what a hunk. I know I'm going to get that.
I know. Well, she does it every time I'm on.
Yeah, right. And Alvaro. Alvaro, you take care.
I hope one or two of you come and visit me in Portugal and actually take a little deep dive into the medicine, because you won't regret it.
I would do it. I would do it.
Well,
let me know how that
get
goes.
On the blower.
Right.
Let's do it.
You two hook up. Alvaro, bless you. Give my love to Teresa Quinlan. She's the best. You take care.
All the best, Alvaro.
Right.
Thank you for being so open. Brilliant.
Look at this. All right. I'm not even going to try. Emma Barros
Mendez.
I'm not going to try and do this. I'll do the word clinica. That's the best I can do, so I don't want to F it up.
In my opinion, since this is a natural alternative and is a plant, it would be interesting to stop calling it a drug and be open to the journey.
Like cocaine. Let's stop calling cocaine a drug, shall we?
It would certainly. Well, cocaine was invented as a painkiller.
It's a drug.
Yes, it is. It will certainly give us answers to what drives people to addictive behaviours. Quoting Gabor Mate, who is amazing, by the way, addiction is only a symptom. It's not the fundamental problem. Do you remember I said good intention, poor strategy? The fundamental problem is trauma. Yep. So if Ibogaine gives you these answers, it will always be a benefit and a step towards recovery. Keep up the good work. And the only caveat on that, Emma, is I would say as long as it can be safe. I mean, if it's sending people into cardiac arrest, obviously.
I got to tell you, sir. I thought he was a well-intentioned guy and absolutely believes what he's doing. I won't touch it with a freaking barge pole. I won't go near it. Why?
Because I've studied kind of things like this before, and I know the experiments with psychedelics on depression and psilocybin. There's another one. They studied magic mushrooms. There's been studies on this kind of stuff.
Do you really want to go? Have the risk of having a heart attack, right? Number one.
Okay, let me put a caveat on it.
Let me break it down a little bit. Whoa, let me break it down a little bit. I've known you for many, many years, so I can talk to you in this kind of casual, shorthand way. One, you got a risk of a heart attack. Stuff that for a start, right? I got enough chances of that without taking drugs. Drugs, right? And the other thing is this: what is it? Don't go into detail. What can't you resolve? You're a highly intellectual guy. You've read every damn book that's published on anything to do with mental. Why do you need to throw yourself into
because to resolve something,
you don't know what the hell's going to come out the other end?
Because you need some sort of space. If you're so involved and you can't see the forest for the trees, then if you can step right back and see it from almost like an observer point of view, that's when the resolution and healing can happen, in my opinion. But you have to be able to step out of it.
I think you're walking through a minefield. You get your legs.
I'm not saying drugs are the only way to do it, but I do know there's significant research going on. There's a recent study in one of the, I think it was UCL, on psilocybin, which is the active ingredient in magic mushrooms.
Yes. We've had.
So people are looking at it. I think even MDMA has been used in trauma healing as well. Ecstasy, as its street name. Now, I'm certainly not saying go to your local street
down in South London in the clubs.
That would be the most silly thing to do.
Let me just say this, because I'm not being down on it. I'm just giving my opinion,
please,
which is the same as everybody else. If you are a serious drug addict, and this helps, as opposed to, I'm not convinced I agree with the 3%. I would question that figure. But if it improves your odds of recovery, great. For me, I won't touch it. I'm waiting for the dog people to turn up. Dog people, come on, where are you?
Well, I can see them. It's just looking like a white screen.
It is a white screen. Shall we see what happens if we bring it on?
Yeah.
I'm not keen on this. Let's see what's happening. No, nobody. Nothing. I only hurried Alvaro along so we get the dog people on, and I was asked specifically, please get the dog people on. I said, all right, I'll squeeze it in.
It's about helping homeless people and their dogs, isn't it?
Well, it's about dogs, so I'm happy. It's about dogs. I had the word. I said you've mentioned. I said to my guy, I said you've mentioned the word dogs. That's enough for me. I don't need to know anymore. Well, until they turn up, that's it. Interesting guy, but I always
We've got a message saying they're here, by the way.
Well, where are
Tails,
they
do you want to log out and come back in again?
Yeah,
Apparently the camera's not working.
Well, I can't even get an audio feed at the moment. I'll put them in, but I don't think it's going to work.
You hear us at least?
I can hear you now, but I've got a lovely black screen staring at us.
Strange.
Don't you have a camera?
We do have a camera, and it's worked for everyone else, but it's not working here for some reason.
Okay, well, that's not our end. Okay, well, listen, we'll listen to you. I'm sure
We'll chat to a black screen.
We'll chat to a blank screen, which is a metaphor for life. Tell us all about yourself, and tell us, you got now just about 9 minutes to crack on with it.
Okay, well, I'm Sean McCormick. I'm head vet at tails.com. I've been on here before, so thanks for having us back. Okay. And I'm here with my colleague and friend, Jade Statt, who's the founder of a charity called Street Vet.
Right.
So, Jade, what does Street Vet do?
Hi. Thanks
Hello.
for having me.
We'd like to see you, Jade, quite frankly, but we can't.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll let you know what Street Vet is. Street Vet is a charity that offers free, accessible vet care to pets belonging to those experiencing homelessness across the UK.
Right.
Wow, what a great idea. That's
Thank you.
Good. I love that.
Are you busy?
Very, very.
Of
Started off 2 of us, and there's now, over 400 vets and nurses outreaching with backpacks on across 17 locations in the UK, and
So
sadly getting busier.
So, Jade, do they literally wander the streets and just say, "Hi, it's your dog okay?" Is that what we're talking about?
So that's how it started,
Right.
but we're now we have a bit more of a systematic approach. So the best way to do it, we find, is to actually pair up with a soup kitchen or existing grassroots organization. They have the trust, they know the community, and then we fit in with them. So we're at the same place, same time, every week, every month, whatever suits for that area.
Now, Sean has been on the show before. We love having him on. It's your first time, Jade. It's a visual show, Jade. Visual show.
I'm sorry.
Sean knows that, and I've been very honest about it. When I walk past somebody homeless with a dog, I walk up the street and I go, "I hope the dog." Honestly, I'm being very honest. I go, "Oh, I hope the dog's okay."
Yeah.
And I worry more about the dog than I do about the person. It's just me because I love dogs. There we go.
Yeah, well, it's not.
Call me a swine. I don't.
It's
care.
not just you, because we commissioned this research really to help Street Vet out in some ways. We've been working with them at tails.com for many years now to support their work, and the research did come out with a similar, kind of finding that a lot of people, 40% of people, would like to help homeless dogs, but they don't know how, and they're more likely to connect with or engage with or try and help someone who's experiencing homelessness if they have a dog. That stat goes up to 50% if you're a dog owner yourself. So the dog on the street, kind of living that lifestyle with their person, is often kind of a conduit for connection. And people experiencing homelessness do say they feel invisible. They feel like no one sees them. A lot of people are kind of awkward around this issue and don't know how they can help, so therefore they just prefer to avoid it or avert their eye contact or whatever. But
that's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's like when someone passes away and you want to say something nice, but you don't quite know what to say.
Just say, "I'm sorry." It's not too tricky. I'm sorry. I had this. I experienced this, and I won't have that bullshit excuse. It's bullshit.
Just say hello and connect over the dog. We all love talking about our dogs, and our Street Vet clients are. Yeah, they'll talk all day about their dogs, and that's how we gain trust.
Can I ask you a question,
You can.
It's a real serious nitty-gritty question. And
Go
as
on.
I walk, I live and I've worked, born and bred in London. It's not a London-centric show, but we've got a lot of homelessness here, obviously. How do the dogs get fed? How are they looked after?
The honest answer, and I've been doing this since 2016, is usually better than the owner. They absolutely prioritize their dogs, and they will do whatever they can to look after them. So
not surprised. Not surprised you say that.
Yeah, the health status that we see between dogs in secured homes and dogs living with owners experiencing homelessness is comparable, and that is what we see at Street Vet, 100%.
Can I ask a really dumb question to both of you? Because it worries me. It worries me. Look, we're one of the richest countries in the world. We shouldn't have bloody homelessness, but that's a 20-hour conversation. Do the homeless folk do they go into a shop and win a lot? I mean, how do the dogs physically get fed? Yeah. I've never been able to ask anyone this.
Well, ultimately, absolutely. So, they will feed their dog before they'll feed themselves. People do, and this is what the study have shown, are more likely to engage with someone who has a dog. So they will go and buy dog food and give it. Also, what Street Vet does is we provide dog food. That's one of the things that we do. And a lot of the soup kitchens are providing pet food now with the cost of living crisis the way it is as well.
I'm such an idiot. There was a kid sitting outside Tesco's. I went there late one night, and she's with a dog, and I just went straight in, and I bought her a sandwich or whatever it was, and I bought the dog's load of food and treats. Sucker. But I had to. I couldn't. It's a little dog sitting out in the middle of the night. It's freezing.
The other misconception that comes around, or what people worry or wonder about, I suppose, is where the dog came from. So we do have a proportion of people kind of judging, I guess, and thinking that this person got this dog to kind of elicit more sympathy or more donations, and the dog's not being looked after. That is far, far from the truth. What happens is that these dogs are often the only link the person has to their previous life, where they had a roof over their head, and they didn't want to give up their dog, and various things can happen, but the rental market, there's a big issue with people not being allowed to bring pets if they have to rent a new property. That can lead to them rough sleeping and lead to homelessness,
or they ask for a stupid deposit, no pun intended.
I have to ask this because it's all about well-being and mental health here, but you're saying people will prioritize their dogs over themselves, and I'm not asking this to be inappropriate. I mean, we should do all we can to help the homeless people, but it sounds like they could take better care of themselves, and maybe they should, you've got to put your own oxygen mask on before you can help anyone else.
Yeah, but
people will help their dogs first. Help me get my head around that.
I guess ultimately their dogs are their biggest mental health support. These owners, their dogs are their only family. They are the reason they get up in the morning. They have absolutely, in many situations, people will say that their dogs have saved their lives. So
agreed, but surely even more of a reason to take care of yourself so you can take care of it.
But I think by taking care of the dog and by helping people to look after the dog helps the person, because a lot of their anxiety is based around their dog. If they need to go into hospital, they won't go because they won't leave their dog. So what Street Vet
does, who are they going to ask? That's the point. Who the hell are they going to ask?
What we're trying to do and what we do is build trust so that they know that if they leave the dog with Street Vet and we board them, so Battersea Dog and Cats Home help us with this in London, they can board the dog while they go into hospital or go into rehab to try and help themselves as well. But it's about building trust, because if you don't have the trust, they will not leave their dog.
And one of the great things Street Vet are doing, which is a more recent thing, is starting a hostel accreditation scheme. So only 10% of hostels in the UK will actually accept pets with the person seeking their services.
We've got 2 minutes left. I'm desperate to see you guys. Somebody, a very wise woman, has said, have you logged out, you guys, have you fully logged out of your previous video call? Because I know you're going back to back. Have you you've logged out of that? And any apps, because they could be using your camera on
this.
On
Can
this.
You see us now?
You may not have logged out of the previous one.
Can you see us?
No.
Gareth is helping behind the scenes here. We'll see.
Excellent.
It's going to be a delicious mystery. I mean, I never thought of it that way. I never thought that, number one, the trust has to be built up first, because people, if it is their only mental health support, they're going to be super protective about it. Their dog, and they're not going to want to leave it for 1 second. Just and I understand that. I never really thought about that before. And if you were homeless, who exactly would you ask to take care of your dog?
And how could you leave behind, your best friend that doesn't judge you, that hasn't, judged you for ending up in this situation, that doesn't care if you've showered, that just wants to be by your side. Absolutely. And is the only listening ear that you have. So it's very, very difficult to separate that. And that's
is all your money got through fundraising? Is it? And if so, how can people donate?
It's very much a case of the public support. The veterinary profession is amazing, and partners like Tails.com have done some impressive fundraising for us over the years. But if people want to get involved, they can go to streetvet.org.uk to donate. And Tails.com have got a really good initiative this Christmas as well.
Yeah, so we give we design a range of Christmas gifts for dogs. We know that people buy Christmas gifts for dogs. 62%, 2/3 of people will buy a gift this Christmas. We're saying if you're going to gift this Christmas, people or pets, maybe choose a gift that actually gives back. So we've designed our entire Christmas range on shop.tails.com to donate a generous portion to charities like Street Vet through our community fund.
Well, I'll tell you something, guys. I'll tell you something, guys. You nearly had an extra dog patient Monday night driving home, and I think it was a pit bull. It was bloody huge. Ran across the main road, started zigzagging all over the place. I stood on the brakes because I couldn't bear the thought of hitting a dog. It was completely out of control. And the idiot behind me, following far too close, rear-ended me.
Oh no, are you okay?
I'm still here. Guys,
Good.
it's been a pleasure. I wish we could have seen you. And it's always a pleasure to have you on the show anytime. We love the vets. We love the dogs. It's all good for our mental
We've had
health.
a whole morning of radio interviews, and I said to Jade, I can't wait to go on men's radio because it's always a good laugh.
Good banter.
You're both very welcome here.
Bless you guys. You're always welcome. Anytime.
And I'm going to donate for Christmas. I promise you. Give me my word.
Thank you.
We're
Thank you
bang
very
out
much.
of time. Thanks for joining us. I'll be back on Friday. Till then, try and stay out of trouble. And if you've got a dog, don't let it loose near Tower Bridge. Thank you.